You know, like everybody can say, "Oh, that was kind of evil," but there's no true evil. It's a old wives' tale. It's a fairy tale. Santa Claus. You know, you blame somebody for being evil when you can't understand why they do what they do. There's insane. Yeah, that's different though. Yeah, that's a medical condition, but that's not evil either. No.
No, and you know, that's the I think the whole element of where we are as we've got to be as human beings. We've got to sort of question and look at these things because, man, you know, as we both know, I mean, the trouble with culture, and particularly in the West at the moment, is we get caught behind leaders and they don't want us to question, you know, and like I say, and then we just fall into the narrative of saying, hey, anyone over the hill is evil, and we just accept it, and all
Yeah.
the time that happens, the bad stuff goes on because nobody just wants to sort of sit there and look outside their boundaries of where they're living or their local environment.
You know, H.G. Wells' Time Machine. You know, there's the Eloy and the guys who lived underneath the ground. There was the innocents that just slept through all the horror at night and tried to enjoy the day, pretend like nothing was wrong. Yeah, that's kind of like kind of what we're becoming. Got these people who watch sports or concerts or play games or get lost in their own world to escape the real world. But if you just do escape, then you're not gonna understand the world. You're not gonna be able to fix anything.
No, and I mean, I'm fascinated on this, and I know it's something that from a man who, you know, I know you've got a sort of a background in sort of computers and stuff. I'm fascinated to know what your opinions are. I mean, on Oculus Rift and the whole virtual reality world, because I think that's going to. My personal opinion is on what you just said then about people wanting to get lost and dive into other worlds. I think that's going to be something that is going to be a big step that a lot of people are going to jump into. I can see a lot of people spending all their lives in a virtual world, literally just being sat there, being fed like you know, feeding themselves or being drip fed and living in a virtual world. Now, as much as I would never want to personally ever, I mean, I wouldn't not want to go into look into a virtual world. I know one of these people like, you know, say I wouldn't do it because of some sort of moral judgment. I think I'll be quite interested as a creative person, but I have no desire to spend my life in it. But I think I see the optimism in it because this is how I look at it. I'm interested to see your thoughts and what your thoughts on this is. But I think with the more human beings that spend their time in virtual worlds, killing virtual people, and not outside in the real world, killing real people with pieces of metal, then I think that's maybe in the short term or maybe in the medium term, is actually quite a beneficial thing because I don't mind people killing, you know, virtual beasts and virtual monsters. It's when they kill real human beings that to me is a problem.
Well, when people are sick and stressed and diseased, they can break from normal habits very easily uh, with stressful psychological conditions and stuff. They can send people over the edge. And our monetary system, our society, it stresses everybody to produce GDP, to produce money. And everybody's got to make money. Everybody's got to look around them and find what around them they got to turn into money so they can eat tonight. Eventually, you use up all the resources, and you'll sell it for whatever price the market will bear because you need the money to go buy food. It's ridiculous. And the money's issued and it's dead anyway. It was issued in the promise that you would pay it back with your labor later. So why don't we just not issue the debt and just issue money for your labor based on what you think is right for you?
Yeah, and I like I say, that's why I think it's going to be an interesting period in the human civilization the next few years when people do step into virtual worlds, because I think as you know, I mean, you know about the safe network and stuff like that. I think these are the first steps to what you just said. I think these are breaking ourselves away from the money, because all the time you're out in the world there, and we're forced to. And right now, as I was saying to you, just before we went live, I mean, I have no choice other than to use fiat money over here. I can't go to a cash machine and use Bitcoin. So and that's what I'm saying. I think that what we're seeing with the safe network and these other solutions and stuff that's going on is just this idea of these first steps about breaking ourselves away from this debt and this monetary system, which I think is going to be an interesting thing, because I think the two, as I said, will go hand in hand, because I think there's a desire in a lot of people to escape into a virtual world. And by doing that, they're going to need a virtual currency. And by doing that, it's a sort of, you're almost getting into a mindset of like, okay, by doing that, you've broken yourself away from at least a debt of the dollar and all the rest of it. So I don't know. I mean, as I said before, I think all this is just speculation, and I'm fascinated to know, like I say, someone who's got a background in computers, how you sort of feel that these are going to change with the rise of virtual worlds and all this sort of stuff. Do you think these are positive steps forward or negative steps forward?
I think it's even a negative step forward is a mistake until you realize it's a mistake, and then you correct it. So mistakes are part of life. It's like there's no good and evil. Well, you make mistakes and you correct your course. It's not good or bad. It's a lesson that had to be learned. So maybe we're learning a lot of lessons. I don't know. Seems like we're learning a lot nowadays. The computers in the future. Have you heard of the HP's Memristor technology?
No.
No, you haven't heard. Memristor is a different type of circuit. I don't know if I can explain it correctly, but if you search for a YouTube video on Memristor, it'll explain it to you. But it has a on and off state that can be that'll stay when you have no electricity applied. So you can pop it in the on state with electricity. Then when you're ready to read it, you read it or whatever state it's at, and you can change it with the same with a burst of electricity. It's very efficient power-wise because it doesn't require like RAM. It doesn't need all the power pulsing every millisecond, nanoseconds. That kind of a memristor is also it's a computer and memory together. So when you combine those two, you have a different platform for processing. And a lot of the old ideas on computers are going to have to be dug up and looked at again to determine how to program these massively arrayed computer memory, computation memory devices. So they can be made as small as a nanowire, and it's what's going to come after optical masking with silicon, or be incorporated with it. That and HP is working on faster interconnect technology, a light switch, a photonic communication with lasers. So that's much faster, and it helps to bring all the processors in close proximity to each other so they can communicate faster. Because the bottleneck on them would be the communication. So they're putting all that into one computer. And they've been working on it for at least 7 or 8 years now, so they're getting almost to the stage of able to put the memory into use, into commercial products now, and a little further. And I think that'll be the basis for a learning computer. We need a lot more processing power and a lot more data and a lot more processors to come together to work out the things in reality that the computer is going to sense to make sense of. But deep learning algorithms, Um, I don't know what else to say about it, but it's interesting.
It is, because I know that you're obviously, because you're sort of have a very deep interest in this, and me less so, but this is all only advancing. This is the point I try to get across to everyone around me all the time, that the exponential rise of technology, and what
Yeah.
this whole discussion is just basically trying to envisage, and I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it's part of, to me, again, of um, proof of this rise is, like you said, is that there seems to be at the moment, and I'm sure you're aware of this far more than me, but from every angle there seems to be all these different approaches. AI seems to be arising in all these different forms from all around, from different parts of the planet and stuff like this. And it is fascinating to think this is all happening in a period of time that we can right now witness. And I'm fascinated this, because I'm I don't know whether we've been here before as a human species, and we had this maybe 10 to 20,000 years ago, and for whatever reason, meteors, or what, we just, our own folly, we just destroyed ourselves, or whether this is the first time this has arisen. But what absolutely astounds me is the speed of it. And I'm old enough, and to sort of think, man, I remember 20 years ago. I remember the idea of your mobile phone was a walk down to the local telephone box, and how we've moved on in the last 20 years. So I'm fascinated to think how this is going to, sort of move on in the next sort of 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years, from where we are now. But I think the point where we are now is that I just think there's a great synergy going on right now that I don't think we've ever seen, maybe in the last, I maybe put it back to maybe 100 years ago, for the Industrial Revolution. I don't know how you feel about this, but I just think right now we're maybe witnessing things around us that are astounding, that, as children, I was saying to you the other day, we all grew up, sort of imagine what the year 2010 would be like, and none of us saw this coming. We all thought we'd have flying cars. We didn't see that we'd be having this conversation.
Mm. Yeah, we didn't think we'd be talking on laptops. Remember the old Dick Tracy watch when I was a kid? Yeah. The communicating watch was from Dick Tracy, where he had video communication on his watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're still running black and white reruns on TV when I was growing up, So
Yeah.
it's not. It's changing faster and faster. In 5 or 10 years, it'll be like all the change we've had in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Information exposes other information. I think when the computer becomes as intelligent as a human, or more intelligent than a human, well, if the general overall intelligence is greater than a human, that's probably still 100 years away. But specific things, creativity or painting or music or writing things, or searching for information, communicating with us, it'll be much better at in 10 years, where it'll be like we're talking to a person with a computer. And it'll probably be centralized big computers with remote cloud access to it. So we probably won't own our own big computers at first, but we should have access to them, like an IBM Watson or something. Like, you'll be able to call them up, or call it on your phone like Siri, and ask it questions or have it do things for you, and become much smarter at that. It should be able to eliminate most jobs, hopefully. We can already automate 90% of jobs, probably. Automate or eliminate with technology. But whether we get there is up to the monetary system, because when you have scarcity of money, money has to be scarce to have any value, then the scarcity is reflected in the marketplace. There's never enough money to go around for everybody. So you always have starving people. You always have struggling people, people who don't make enough to pay their rent or pay their medical bills and stuff. So as long as you're using a, a scarcity-based mechanism like money, you're going to have the problems that you have since the beginning of money, which is people stealing, people robbing each other, people killing for it, um, people murdering each other, wars, disease, pestilence, the ravages of the environment, um, killing off the life of the earth. I mean, it's like a cancer; it'll eat us up. But hopefully, we'll get someplace a little smarter in 10, 15 years, and we can do something about it, make a change. That's
Well,
what I'm hoping for.
yeah, uh, and I, I think that's why I've always been from day one, and as much as I've tried to get as much understanding and dig deeper into the made safe and the safe network, that's why I say all the time, I think it is a really truly epoch moment, because what I see now, I think one of the greatest things that's going to happen through the safe network is just this flourishing of people connecting. Now, I think the side benefits, I mean, the idea of massive distribution of supercomputers, and the idea we can all tap into this and other things that are going to come through it. But I just sort of see it as an epoch moment solely in the sense of that it's just that connection moment. And I think if we can connect people, as we've seen with just these basic tools we've got right now, where we can speak over long distances and times, and we understand of like, oh, I have no need to hate someone because they're outside my family, which is what we've gone from hating someone outside your family to those over the hill we don't like. And this is just dissolve these boundaries. And I think the safe network will be a complete upgrading of that completely, where we will have direct access to these things, and we can start direct payment for like the sharing resources and stuff. And I think like I said, I think instead of the idea of, like you mentioned, maybe a centralized computer that that's got all the knowledge in it, maybe not. Maybe that's what I think. I think that I love about the safe network. Maybe the idea is the future is completely decentralized, and that nobody owns the brains of the central nervous system, and that actually we all are the brains of the nervous system, because that's what you see in nature. That's what you see. There is no overriding ruler of nature, and I think that's what I've always been inspired by technology. It's always basically just reflected nature and said, we know nothing. We think we're the top of the tree as humans, but actually, we need technology to help us. And that's what I love about technology. I think it's a very neutral thing. What we do with it is like we were discussing, as you mentioned before. As you're saying, it's how we shape these things. You know what I mean? There is no good and evil, but technology can be used for good and for evil. I just think the safe network is a huge step forward, because as I say, I think it's equivalent to the printing press. It just gives more people more knowledge and dissolves boundaries, which I think can only be a good thing. What arises from that's going to be an interesting question, which we could spend hours discussing, but I just think it's that's what excites me about it. So I mean, you've heard my thoughts. What excites you about the safe network? Because that's how we've come to sort of connect. So, I mean, how did you sort of first hear about it, and what excites you about it?
Well, I first heard about Bitcoin back in 2009. I was always hanging around with, I don't know, the hacker crowd, and caught wind of Bitcoin back in 2009. So I wrote a couple of things in the blockchain, but I didn't have the proper hardware to mine, and I had other things going on in my life at the time. So Bitcoin went on the back burner, but I knew when I saw it that the idea of that distributed ledger system that was millions of copies would be produced of it, and it would be verifiable all the way down to the last bit. I knew that would be useful in making uh, programs, automated programs, and verifying information, and not so much that the Bitcoin was going to be worth anything, but that the tool itself is worth something for what it does, for being able to provide verifiable information in an untrusting environment. Because we're a giant monetary system, means we really can't trust anything we see or hear. It's all tainted. Even the thing your friend tells you, he's just repeating it for someone else. That reminds me, you were saying we're like the computers connected like a network. In reality, each of us is a computer, and we're all connected, because if you ever take somebody who is not raised in human society, they're called feral children, or they're raised by wolves, and they have a really hard time. They may not be able to speak ever, and they don't act like humans. They have a hard time, learning manners and dressing, stuff like this. All we are has come from outside of us, in our environment, in the people we associate with, the things we read and watch. So when you talk about thinking outside the box, there is no thinking outside the box. There's no real imagination. There's just what you've seen, and you being able to maybe figure out how things work. But you can't imagine something you've never seen or heard or had described to you. If you don't have the idea in your head, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. So your imagination, your dreams, maybe mixing up things and putting them in new order, seeing how they work. But there's no imagining new things. There's no free will. We have what we know and our environment around us to determine how we're going to act. And if you were a Chinese baby, you'd be speaking Chinese. If you were born in China, that's what you're going to speak. You don't come out speaking English, because it's not in there. It has to be put in by the environment. So everything is from your environment, your society, and your life, the world around you, how you interpret things, what you've been taught about it. One of the great problems with people becoming dissociated from life, from the problems of the world, is that they've been taught that they're inadequate, that they can't do anything to help, that they have no power. They're taught this by the schools and the TVs and people of the past who maybe have failed and say, oh, it's not worth it. It's not true. I mean, even speaking up in the smallest way has, it's a light in the dark for other people, and you got to keep to what you believe is right. Right and wrong.
Yeah.
What you believe is true.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, I I have to say this, but when I say that you are the brains of the central nervous system, because I've witnessed this in my life. I've been fortunate enough to live, like you said, in different parts of the world. When you go to other parts of this rock that we live on, that just tumbles through space, and you meet other human beings got no experience at all with your world, absolutely, completely the most imagine. If you can imagine the most opposite of what you live in, no language, but we connect, and that's what I witnessed this. I've said this before. I lived in Venezuela, and we had a lot. I spent a lot of time sort of speaking with people who even Spanish, they didn't know any Spanish, but we could connect. I didn't know much Spanish, they didn't know much Spanish, but there was just a human connection there, and it was like, okay, I don't know what this is. I haven't got the scientific brain to work this out, but I know it's there, and that's what I'm saying. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter what any science tells me. It's something and you feel in your heart as much as anything else, and that wow, we're all just human beings and all the problems that have come between hand have always just been, like you said, around money and around people coming in and putting barriers between other human beings. And that's what I as I said before, I think that's one of the things that I think it's I'm positive about where we are right now, because I think the more we can gain connection, it's a step in the right direction. That's all I can say, because I think more that, like I say, if we can get to the point where more people understand that they do own the most supercomputer in all of us, and that's the problem. We've all just been, our computer systems have been riddled with cookies and viruses, and we've all the inputs have just been inputted into us since which we had no choice on. We had no choice where we were born. We had no choice. We had no choice. We were children. We didn't have, and the wake up moment to people is to say to people, look, okay, we've all been put into that, but you do, you have the most supercomputer, and you can switch that on, and then you can, like you said, you can affect loads of things. The analogy I was always given is interesting when you said, because I think it's a perfect analogy that I was given to a guy who I shaman down in the Amazon. He said to me, he said, put it this way, he said, like, imagine if you looked up from above and you look down at human beings and all you see is just autonomous robots, and they're just all walking around and they're just bumping into each other. You go over to one and you switch a light on, and it wakes up and it has a realization of what it is, and then it goes to that robot who's had its light switched on, goes to the next one, and then it switches its light on, and he said before you know it, it just all spreads out. And this is what I think is going on at the moment. I think there's a great awakening of humanity where people are just realizing, like, it doesn't matter, like you said, and this is beyond any culture. We've all
that's literally what the word zeitgeist means. That's what the word zeitgeist is talking about. It's talking about an idea traveling from person to person and spreading throughout the society. It's a social zeitgeist. That's where zeitgeist, the word, came from.
Exactly, because I mean that's the, as you were saying, I think it's always good that people, like, we talk about these things, because it's not just every culture is fed into worshiping their flag or following the leaders or whatever, and it has been, and for a long time of history, and that's why I think, like you said, if that's a zeitgeist moment in that sense of going to people, look, well, there are no borders, they're just imaginary lines drawn on bits of paper. That's what I have a lot of excitement about the Safe Network, because I think it is somewhere that is going to override all the barriers that have been put down by servers and people that are trying to hold information and hold people away from each other, because to me they are the barriers that are going to hold us back, and ultimately I think they're the ones that are doing the damage in this planet. Not the rest of us. I think it's a very small percentage of people that do all the problems, not it's no coincidence I call the N99, because I think it is 99% of this planet that, I've always used the analogy that if we all sat around in a campfire and there was 10 of us and one of us got up and said, right, it's 10:30, it's time to go to bed, everyone would be like, yeah, good luck to you, my man. Because that's the point. But when you scale it up, that's all we're living in. We're living in a world where the very small are controlling the very great, and like you said, by this debt and by this money, and people don't even understand what money is, and that's the great awakening, for people to understand really what money is.
It cracks me up that people that you would draw, well, that it cracked me up in Occupy when they were drawing the 99% thing, because if you do the math, there's 7.2 billion people in the world. That's 720 million people is 1%. So that's more than the population of the U.S. and Canada and England and Australia combined. The 1% is not really. It's maybe a 0.1%. It is up there just. But even they're not guilty. Even they are a Chinese baby speaking Chinese. They are in their element, and they are understanding their environment, and they're seeing things from their perspectives, and it all makes sense to them. Dick Cheney does not think he did anything wrong. Madeleine Albright thinks it's okay. 500,000, Iraqi baby dies. babies died. Sanctions were necessary, even though the sanctions were for weapons he didn't have. Sorry to those 500,000 babies that died. War is the old way of doing things, and once you accept that that's no longer acceptable, that becomes, if it's not acceptable and you make it clear that it's not acceptable, and we all make it clear it's not acceptable, then it stops. What else could they do?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the. I mean, it's one of the great. I mean, I use that 1% earlier on. I think it's funny. It's almost like you said. It's a hilarious statistic in that sense, because when you factor into that, man, if you're earning over $40,000, you are the 1%. And then you hear people over here going, "Oh, but I'm saying that, but you are the 1%." Like you say, when you break the numbers
I'm
down,
the 1%.
yeah, exactly, man. Well, look at us. We're the 1% because we're sitting having this conversation. That's the point. But like you said, I mean, but
you ever seen the video? The guy says, "Throw your bodies on the gears." You ever seen that video from I think it was from Berkeley, from the '60s. I'll just send you that video. Got to throw your bodies on the gears. Got to stop the machine, and the machine runs with money. That's what keeps everything running. They issue notes on debt, which means you have to pay this off, which means you have to supply your labor to pay off the debt. That's where austerity is coming from. People are tired of working in the system, or they can't find jobs, but the government still needs a taxable income, so austerity.
Yep,
see how that turns out.
Exactly. I mean,
the pain will continue until you have learned your lesson. That's how I feel about it. It's like you're going to continue walking into that wall until you realize there's a wall there. And then we'll find a way around it.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's why I think that, to me, that's when I think Made Safe and the Safe Network are one of the ways of circulating that wall and getting around people, because like I said, it's just a way of all people want. And I'm sure you're in complete concurrence when we say this, is that people just want to be left alone. That's all. I think that's the bottom line. People just want to be left alone, just to not to be told solutions. I see this both ways. I said, one of the things I learned really day to day living in South America was, and I became really quite as strong opinionated as people living there, was when you'd have these almost like self-righteous, do it all, want to be goody people going, "Oh, we've got the solution to this, and we've got the solution to you." Exactly, man. And they go down to like parts of South America, and they think they've got all the solutions. And and it's just like, just leave me alone. I don't want your solutions. I just want to be left alone. And that works both ways, whether it's a good intention or a bad intention. And that's why like I say, that's one of the things I get really excited about the Safe Network, because I think we just need a way of just navigating these problems and connecting people one to one, which is, I think, is just a reflection of like you said earlier on, the zeitgeist going on around. It's just a digital format of that, just connecting people.
Yeah. Well, the zeitgeist is we're all about education in the zeitgeist movement, because we don't have technical solutions yet. I mean, we have technical solutions to the technical problems. We don't have technical solutions to how to get everybody to get on the same path. So one of the things we're looking for looking at Bitcoin and new computers and new teaching programs, new learning styles. We do education, go to schools. The thing about it is we're trying to prepare in case we find a solution that works, that people can adopt, waiting for the better mousetrap to come along. So if we could find some way to operate without money that was functional, and we could demonstrate that, I think everybody would agree to do it. It's not real So nobody can say, we need to do that. They just say, oh, you're just robot utopianist. Yeah. Communist utopianist, something like that. It's not about, it's not that money is evil. It's just that money works in a certain way. It has to be scarce. It's going to cause scarcity in the environment. That's the way it works.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's why, again, I mean, I think that's what excites me about the Safe Network and their distribution of resources and the idea that, of both ways. And I mean, I look at it this way, and I heard this, I'm not the first to sort of say this by any means, but, the idea of Bitcoin, and I think the weakness of Bitcoin is its value is always needed on what its worth is. It's always going to need a worth outside in the outside world, where SafeCoin is just about resources, and it doesn't matter if it was worth nothing in the outside world, because it's the resources you've got, which is what it's saying. It's just, and I know it's a contentious subject of, and a set of words, but it's that resource-based economy. I know that's a touchy sort of, those three words together are very sort of touchy, but it is that resource-based economy, which I loved about the Safe Network. It was just rewarding, and like a flow of complete currency in and out, and the flow of the ocean in and out. And I think it's that's what I'm saying. I think this is what really excites me about the Safe Network and what's being done, because I think these are the first steps towards that kind of understanding, where it's not just based on what, like a Bitcoin is, what value it has on the trade market.
Values, is determined by the market, but it's all just decisions based on people, how desperate you are to sell something or how desperately you need to buy something. It's all based on your available amount of cash, not really. I mean, if you absolutely have to have a certain type of medicine, if you only have this much money, you're going to buy generic. If you have this much money, maybe you'll buy the full non-generic brand. It's determined by your means, and it's silly. It's not determined by your need, because obviously the neediest people are the least able to be able to produce money. Everybody has to be a cow producing milk in this world in order to live. No. Some people are valuable just hugging a child, or just painting, or wandering through the woods, looking at the flowers. That's it should be up to people to do what they wish to do, not up to the market to decide how they're valuable, or up to governments to set up markets to decide. The control of money, that money allowed of society for industrial purposes and efficiency purposes, to keep everybody from hoarding everything or taking too much. Those mechanisms can be replaced by something like a blockchain technology, or a token, or a coin, electronic, that doesn't need to have the value of money to do the same thing. And I'm hoping to find a way to do that and make it practical. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I'm all up and down the blockchain and all the coins, and looking around. There's one called Circles, which is a basic income type, which is self-generated, not monetary. But I haven't had a good chance to look into it yet.
Like I say, I think one of the major strengths of what's being built with it, the interconnection of, with what Made Safe had done, that whole idea is that it's almost beyond. I think SafeCoin and that are kind of, okay, they're interesting concepts because they can be, and I think I'm not really particularly myself focused on making, the safe coin itself. I think that the epoch moment about it is that connection thing of like I said, like you were just saying then, I'm an artist. I create. Why shouldn't I just be able to create and not have to think, oh, okay, I've got to go and do something else? And it's not a case of, like you said, some sort of utopian communism thing where like, okay, you're designated an artist and we will regenerate you or give you what you feel you deserve. It should be a case of, no, I do it, and some people are going to like something. It should just be always one to one. And I've seen this, like I said, when I lived in the. This is what makes me laugh. All the strife and all the things that we talk about in our world, that they don't exist in the same rock that we live on. In great parts of it, they don't worry about dollars and exchange rates and stuff like that. It's just a case of they're in nature, they live off nature. And I'm not talking about some noble tribesman stuff, because I think that's a load of bollocks. I think it's people are people. The guy in the Amazon, he wants the phone as much as we do because he wants, why shouldn't he? I mean, it's his choice. But those people don't. They have far less mental diseases. They have far less suicide rates. They have far less, so much difference. And it's like, okay, what are they doing correctly that we're not doing correctly?
Well, we just haven't had a chance to ship them all over TVs and McDonald's yet. Give it a little time.
Yeah, I mate, but that's the point. That's the thing. I mean, mate, I kind of, when I went to South America, I kind of went in thinking, oh, it's this great big pristine place that's not been touched by. Oh man, there's Coca-Cola signs everywhere. It was. I mean, the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi brands, they got themselves stamped into every corner of every South America. But as I said before, so it's not. And this is the thing. It's not a case of even the people in the middle of the Amazon don't know about what's going on. They know what's going on. I mean, this whole idea that there's some sort of, noble tribesman out there doesn't know they know what's going on in the outside world, but they should be allowed to use. They don't want roads being built in, but they could. I've never met every time I lived down there. They were quite happy to use phones. They wanted the connection. It's that whole choice. But like I say, they should just be given choice, not having their jungles and their land just bulldozed down just to basically feed cows that are feeding McDonald's. I mean, I don't care. I'll name names. That's how it is. They're destroying parts of this planet to grow soya plants.
Who wants to destroy the environment? Going to the lowest bidder. Your lowest bidder wins. You just scrape off the whole 10,000-year-old forest just right off the top. Burn it.
Yep. And
hamburgers.
Exactly, and I think the thing is about this is the whole thing. But I mean, we know we live in a world, we live in a society where they're not going to tell you about that. That's not going to be the main news on the media because they don't want you to focus on that. But when you're living there, this is the problem. When you're not told about it, or you are told about anything, oh, it's just happening outside over there. You don't understand what it means to be, and that's where their lack of empathy comes in, because people think, oh, well, it happens to the people in Amazon. It's like, well, imagine if that was your house. Imagine if the bulldozers moving into your back garden.
It is your house.
I know, but do you know what I mean? But I'm talking back to the guy living in there. You know what I'm saying?
I know. That's the thing. They need to go look at everything. That's the thing that's changing. Is the perspective is going from family, town, city, country, continent, worldwide. It's gone to that, and it's changing the whole society having that viewpoint. And it's kind of a Carl Sagan viewpoint, I guess. You can't think about just your own self, because you're not alone. You're part of a system, and you have to worry about the whole system. You have to think about the whole system. You have to be concerned about what's going on with the whole system. And people think, oh, well, keep doing that, and we're going to go up in flames and go down with the ship. Rearranging deck chairs on that Titanic.
Yep, it is, and again, that's why I think I don't know. I tend to, if I can, as much as any of us can step into the future and hope to look into the future, I hope to be. I think I tend to be viewing the future as an optimistic thing, because I think if we can get things like, you know, this idea of connection, what we talk about through the safe network, we can break people away from the debt of money, and we can start moving forward. And so instead of all the money being pumped into killing people and all the destruction, we can actually feed people and start exploring space and all the rest of it. Why not, man? That's us. We're human beings. We've got the, you know, that's what separates us, you know, from the monkey, man, is that we can sit and look into space and go, oh wow, there's human beings looking down at us up there. You know, that's what we should be doing. We should be exploring space. That's our kind of, you know, our step as human beings, you know, to step into that future. And I think we can make this happen, and that's why I'll flag the flag for these things, because, as I said before, if we don't, and we did, you know, and this doesn't happen, and the other side of the world, well, man, the other side of the coin is a very dark side, and we wouldn't be having this chat in that world.
When you're not hiding information to make money off of it, think of all the information shared around the world and how many people could get off this world and go do what they wanted to do, go out in spaceships or explore space or the moon but don't forget, you're already on a spaceship. This is a spaceship, and we're destroying it. What makes you think you can get away? There's no place else with life, just here. So far.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things at the moment, isn't it? I mean, man, as you know, all you got to do is just get.
That was one of the messages in The Martian. Have you seen the movie The Martian yet?
I don't even want to see that piece of shit, but go on. Well,
yeah.
Is it any good?
It's growing. The guy's in order to survive on Mars, he has to grow his own food.
Mm-hmm.
So he grows food on Mars, life on another planet. This is kind of one of the signals, or one of the memes that is being broadcast by the movie.
Yeah, because it's that's what I think it's two-part thing. I think one of them, we you know, why shouldn't we go and explore space and time and all the rest of it? I think that's one of our roles, and equally, and if we just, this is you know, I think it is a wake-up moment. I think a lot of people are going through that. If we just basically stop the collective madness, we wouldn't. You know, there's enough resources on this planet for us all to live in space, time. You know, it doesn't take much. It just takes a step back from looking at this madness that everyone's just continuously cycling on. And that's when you see these growth of cities. And well, why can't someone just stop and, like you said, and even, you know, it's kind of melds into the whole of the Venus Project thing, but just look about how to reshape societies and about more efficient ways of doing things and building, you know, but nobody's on that. Nobody's interested, because everybody's just, the people that are on that, you know, Moneyball chain of power and money, you know, the rest of it, they're just so short term. They don't even think about what goes on in the next 5 years. They don't even think about what goes on in the next 5 minutes in their own lives. It's just now.
That's why we need a technological solution, a better rat trap, something that makes it simple for people who don't want to have to think about it, but can't understand that it's better that way. So that's what everybody's looking for, I guess. A solution. Now, I think we'll come across it with the technological solution, with computers, with our internet connecting each other. I think we'll be able to figure it out.
Well, yeah, I think so as well. I think one of the first things that I think will basically will have to be a big rethink, and I think, you know, I think it may be happening very soon rather than later. Well, people have to look at cities. It's not so much the places they're built, but it's just the madness around them. People getting in cars to put monkey suits on, to put ties on, to sit in a building, to sit on a computer when they don't need to be in that building. And everyone's just going through the same monkey race every single day, and it will just be seen as a madness.
You can do at least work. Yeah. Nobody wants, if you're in a group like that and you're getting paid to work, people want to do less work, because that way they perceive that they're getting more value for the work they do. So it seems that they're more valuable if they do less work. Counter to, I mean, it's counterproductive. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I personally think one of the great questions that I think was going to have to face us as a society for the next sort of short period of time, medium period of time, whatever you want to call it, is basically we've got to wrestle. As you said before, the one thing that we've got right now over AI and all the is our creativity, is our ability to. I even say empathy, not it's our ability to have compassion and creativity, and this is the things that the thing that we've got the edge over this AI, but it's the thing that is so lackingly taught in everywhere in our society for humans to be creative. We've got to learn to find ways of all of us tapping into that creativity, whatever it may be, whether you're an artist, a musician, whether you're a scientist, whatever it may be. We've got to tap into this creativity because I think in the general battle, as like I say, with AI, as it's going to happen, it will exponentially get more and more intelligent. We've got to have that edge over it to shape it rather than it shaping us.
I think we're going to connect with it. I mean, we have all kinds of prosthetics and laser surgery for our eyes, and different types of implants and different types of surgeries, hair implants, stuff like this. Prosthetics. And I think the computer will come along and be like a prosthetic for our brain, maybe opening up a new sense avenue. Like, you'll know, I don't know, maybe it'll enhance your eyesight, so you'll be able to see in X-ray vision or infrared or something, just by connecting to your optic nerve and adding that information in, and a computer hardware doing the work, but transmitting the signal to your brain. So I think we're gonna connect very closely with the computer, and actually, eventually, there won't be any difference. I mean, you won't know where the human stops and the computer starts, because the computers will be made more biological and the humans will be made more mechanical, to be tougher. Just as choice enhancements, I think. It seems a little strange maybe to us, but we already do it and we don't think anything of it. It's like the future is very strange until you get there, and then it all looks just fine. It just looks normal. It looks like everything else. And it's if you're happy or unhappy, it's your perspective on the world, because it's the same thing you're looking at. Just some people are happy with the world and some people are unhappy with the world, and they don't have a choice. It's based on their education and their environment, and environment means mental health too. Like if you're physically handicapped or vitamin deficient, you can be depressed, or we do nothing with all the information that we have on nutrition and health and genomic sequencing. It never seems to end up in our products and our food to be healthy. You can spend as much money as you like, you just never gonna get the healthy food. I don't know. That's the monetary system's doing, adding scarcity to promote price and profit. If your security is threatened by terrorism, then you'll spend billions and billions on the next terrorist, even though 50,000 people a year may die in a car crash. That's not worth fixing.
Well, exactly it. I mean, I'm always saying the same thing, and any time a human being is murdered or just taken out of their will, that's always a wrong thing. But like you said, people are very happy to focus on certain parts of the world. But I'm always remembering, like, well, how many times do you hear in the narrative for generalization, just in general conversations, how many kids are dying per day in Africa because they've not got clean water, or how many people are dying from malaria, or how many people are dying in Congo from just people being brutalized from one faction. Don't get to hear about that, and that, to me, I think this all plays into the same thing which has been the sort of focus of this conversation, is that we should all have no middlemen between us and knowledge, and that, I think, like I said, like you were just mentioning before, the technology and the way that things are going to go, they're going to, these boundaries are going to dissolve anyway, because like I say, whether we like you said, where we metamorphosize into, like you say, we become more biological in the machine and we become almost unrecognizable for where we are now, or it goes the other way around where we become like we genetically do it all, and we use the intelligence of computing as just a resource that we tap into, whatever way, maybe biologically way. But what I'm trying to say is that the boundaries are going to dissolve. So when you hear people now still putting these boundaries up and they don't want to do this, or they're telling one, you think you sound like fools, man. I mean, I'm not being funny. That, like you said, sometimes people sort of say, "Oh, you're living in the future," but I'm like, no, the future's now. This is the future, and and you are preposterous. You're the people that, anyone I sort of say that doesn't think that and stands up for these barriers and these middlemen and all, and gives me a multitude of reasons. I'm like, yeah, you sound just like a slave owner standing up for slavery back in the day, man. And you just give me, and you're pointing the finger at me and saying you justify why people should be free. No, you justify why you're putting people in slavery. And I can't say, they just sound fools, because the future is just inevitability is just going to be, we're going to dissolve all boundaries one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, our 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 founders of the U.S. and the people who forced King James to sign the Magna Carta, they were intelligent people. They weren't stupid. They were well educated, and they still did. They still thought the Earth was flat, or they still thought it was okay to enslave people, or they still thought it was okay to kill Indians, or we've despite all of our growing, we still have all these concepts, that they're evil people, that they're people who hate us because we're free, or they're one of the things is, each monetary system in each country is competing against each other on the international market now. That's one of the things causing the international tensions, and has for hundreds of years. And that won't end until money ends. We've been at war since money came about. And I think the two are closely tied. I mean, you may say that there was tribes hunting other tribes before there was money. And yeah, I'm sure they did kill each other for resources when they were scarce. But if resources were abundant, they were very peaceful. And there's plenty of evidence, psychological evidence, to substantiate that. In the animal behavior and human behavior experiments. So, yeah. War is not a natural thing. And people who think it's natural just don't understand human behavior. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And the thing about that as well, I mean, it sort of ties into it. I mean, it kind of underlines it all anyway. I mean, for one tribe to go and attack another tribe, they have to go and force other people to do it, because there's very few people willingly will go and march into someone else's death unless they're feeling threatened. And that's why you need the like you say, that's why you need money and taxes, and then you start a whole big, it snowballs from then. And before you know it, you've got, as we are living in the country now, where they're taking money at our source to go and fund a war that we didn't even have any choice of, and they can only do this because of the money. And if you took away their money, they wouldn't be able to go and fund this stuff. That's the real, I think, wake up moments when people go, look, the real revolution isn't kicking in buildings and smashing buildings out. It's walking away. It's going, look, we don't need to be part of this. We can just walk away. And it's been difficult, man, because it's been hard to sort of formulate, over the last, as long as I've been alive, and I'm in my 40s now, to sort of see, I remember feeling like this in my 20s and thinking, oh, great, but how am I going to escape the monetary system? And all I've seen in the last sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 years is, wow, the solution's coming up to this. And this is why I feel excited about the times we live in, because this wasn't around 20, 30 years ago. And, you know, if you did try to do this stuff, you know, especially in our kind of part of the world 20, 30 years ago, man, they would have bunged you in a cage for the rest of your life. So at least there are people pushing it, and that's what gives me optimism about it, because there seems to be solutions coming from many different angles that are all saying the same thing, which is get us away from the evil hand that's or not, I don't even mean that in the sense, but the blood-ridden hand that's kept us all under this slavery
Yeah,
for all our lives, you know.
yeah, and it goes across. I'm a Republican, actually. I've been a Republican since I registered to vote, and you'd think I'd be a Democrat with my viewpoints or something, but no, I like small government and very less laws and more anarchists. I like um, I want things provided for people that they need. You know, the food, shelter, water, clean air, you know, healthcare, education, transportation. Those are the things people need, not a job. People don't need a job. They don't. You can live without a job. Trust me. People did it forever. Jobs are usually 99% of them are just bullshit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1% that it's actually means something, those people are so stressed out. they just they're I'm surprised they're not insane. The 1% of people we rely on to actually get stuff done. The 1% that farms goes out and farms every day, or the 1% that goes out and puts everything together. Those are the guys who build civilization,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still doing it the old-fashioned way, the same way we did it 150 years ago, with wrenches and screwdrivers and hammers. Nothing's changed, um, and that's just we're so much more advanced than to have people sweating over building stuff that can be mass produced easily, manufactured, automated. Um, you've seen automated machinery manufactured. I mean, they can build the whole car. They don't really need humans to do it. They
Mm-hmm.
employ humans because they get tax breaks for employing humans.
Mm-hmm. It's true, but I mean, but you know, and that's that's the whole sort of cycle, isn't it? You know, and that's the point. That's why we're all put into state education. That's why we're fed these things. That's why we're taught these things, just to make us go out there, just to carry on the cycle over and over and over again. But as I said, you know, I think I'm optimistic, because I just think that through what I've witnessed in my own time alive, and I've seen the connections and stuff and rise, and I think, wow, people, all they need to do, like you were saying, it's that zeitgeist moment, where people on a huge scale start to realise, well, we don't need to be doing this madness. You know, I mean, well, who invented all these rules, man? They're written by people who are a long time dead, and that's, it's difficult for people to do it, man, because as you know, everything they're
I,
fed, and the whole narrative is about fear, and that's a very powerful psychological tool for the human, because it goes right back to, as you said, the tribal days. I mean, the way you control people is put an external fear on them, and that's, you know, it's the fear. It's the old, basically comes down to two narratives. It's fear versus love, and you know, I'm strongly in the team of love rather than the team of fear, and hopefully I see more love arising than I do fear arising.
so have you ever? I think I asked you this. Did you ever listen to Krishnamurti?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard of Krishnamurti?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would recommend anybody watching this to make sure they introduce themselves to Jiddu Krishnamurti. He's one of the most outstanding. Uh, I don't even know what to call him. He's not a holy man. He's not a philosopher. He's uh, he's just extraordinary. People should check him out. They can watch him for free on YouTube. All kinds of stuff he did, but helps you understand how your perception, has to do with the things that you feel about the world, and how detaching yourselves from that perspective, you can gain an edge on it to sort of counteract the negative things that we do with it. Like if you're getting mad about something, what is it that's making you mad about it? I mean, can you see yourself on the outside getting mad? You know, the the book I have linked on my my Twitter page, um, the Science and Sanity by Korzybski, is about non-Aristotelian general semantics, which is Aristotelian. It means things range from good to bad. You know, they're sort of black and white. But a non-Aristotelian viewpoint says there's no black or white. You know, there's just there's a wide spectrum of variety that you can have, and whether you judge it as good or bad is based on your beliefs. But it's mainly about correcting the use of your language, which obviously, if anybody knows it, Korzybski, they know I haven't studied enough of them to correct my language yet. It's a very that's a deep book. They use his method of um, describing things when teaching intelligence agents how to give reports. They give very factual reports based on what they've seen, what they have heard, or what they know. They don't read in between the lines. They don't try to uh, twist the meaning. Um, and that's one of the things that he tried to teach with his general semantics was proper speaking, proper use of the words that we use in everyday language. Uh, it's kind of the key to what everybody's problem is. I don't know. Certainly, I have a lot of problems with the way I take things, the way I think about things when I hear them. I guess everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, so give an example of what you just mentioned of the word, how semantics of words. Give me an example.
Let's see. In just a second. I don't know. It's more of a. I don't know how to give you an example. It's well, I can give you a simple example. Like we say things like the sun goes up. The sun came up today, but it didn't come up. It went around the world. You know, we're revolving in front of the sun. But our language says one thing, but and the meaning we take from that is it's one thing if you know that we're revolving around the sun, but if you're a child or something, you don't perceive things correctly because it wasn't worded correctly. So therefore, um, there's a lot of these kind of flaws in the language that people say things that make no sense. I don't know how else to describe it. Uh, it can cause imbalance in your thoughts. You don't understand why things don't work. Uh, General semantics was meant to be taught like a college level course, but I think it's something that should be learned much earlier, like as a basis for the rest of your life, rather than at the end of your learning, at the end of your childhood. Which childhood is another. I mean, there are children, but there's really no defining line for a child.
Mhm.
All it really is how much have you learned. So if you learn quickly, or you hang around a lot of people who are intelligent, you can become as intelligent as an adult by the time you're 6 or 7, right? So you don't have to act childish. When people let kids watch cartoons and buy them toys and say, "Oh, you did so well," it's it's it treats them like a child, and then they grow up being a child, and then when they grow up, they're a child. They're still a
Yep.
damn child because they never had that they never got to walk out in the woods for 2 weeks and kill their own bear like the Indian Chiefs or something. They never got that manhood ceremony. They never had that transition to adulthood. They were just trained to be children all their whole life. So we have a lot of people that are just giant children, and full of them because that's what our society is trying to produce. So our school system is trying to produce, and the televisions are trying to produce. Um, it's being a child is just not caring and being irresponsible, and it's not your concern what happens, and we see where that gets us.
Yeah, I mean, this completely. I mean, a perfect example, and I've seen this duality in with my very own eyes. I mean, I live in a country over here where we're completely health and safety conscious. You know, kids are wrapped up in cotton wool. They're not, they're driven to school in their big 4x4s, and it's just to live in a bubble. They go home and they're sat there in front of the PlayStation or whatever it may be. And on the other dual side, I've seen kids, like I say, when I lived in Venezuela and stuff, who had not brought up by the parents, but almost brought up by the people around them, like 30, 40 people, and they were given ultimate freedom. And these kids they could climb trees, they were making, rudimentary weapons out of sticks that evolved into, went from a bow and arrow up to a mechanical kind of a wooden gun. And these were just given the freedom and not having any, like I say, imprinting, telling them, oh, you're this, you're this, you're this, and you're this, and just being allowed to explore. Man, and I just thought, wow, and these two kids are still living on the same rock. And all we've got going on, we've got a mindset battle in this part of the world of what we are, which is, again, I think it's driven by fear, consumerism, by this whole idea of just basically fill the hole, fill the hole, fill the hole. I don't pay any attention to my kids, so give them another PlayStation. Fear, 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 and all this kind of thing. And on the other side of the world, we've got living on the same world, the same rock right now. We've got kids who are just described, and it's kind of like, well, their experience when they die and our experience when we die is going to be living on the same planet. But hey, what can we learn from each other? And there's not really much to learn from a whole way, but there's a hell of a lot we can learn from, like you said, just allowing children to not imprint them and just, I don't know, just learn from what other cultures do and think, well,
Yeah.
when they're not given that imprints, and then they're allowed to have the freedom, they can achieve miraculous things. They can converse different languages. They can learn different languages. Their supercomputers are unbelievable.
Yeah, you figure that that child learned how to talk in the first 2 years of its life. I mean, from just random sounds it doesn't know what they are, but to mama, daddy, and hungry, and want my blanket, all this stuff. Just learning to adapt into the world in 3 or 4 years, as these children do, that's a supercomputer.
Mm.
That's amazing.
I think that's
Really.
one of the things that I think it's a sad indictment of the society we live in over here, is that we, like you just said, we underestimate children, and we just put them
Yeah.
in boxes. When you realise that, I've seen this myself, man. I've seen kids who are 3 and 4 picking up a completely new language in a space of 3 or 4 weeks just by amongst themselves, just learning. And you think, wow, you know. But we go to a school over here, it's like, oh, but we don't want to pressure them into learning a language at an early age. Man, they're supercomputers, and we're doing a disservice to them, I think.
Huh. I try to. Yeah, I agree. You don't want to pressure them, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't give them the opportunities.
Mm.
Yeah, you got to open the door and let them go. Nowadays, we're all stuck in apartments and houses, and it's too dangerous to go outside. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Again, that's the old, and I don't know if you're aware, but it's the old Bill Hicks joke, isn't it? You know, like he used to say, you know, you got the media and narratives saying to you, it's all fear, destruction, war, death, pestilence, and you look out your window, all you do is you see birds singing and crickets humming, and you think, well, wait a minute, where is all this shit happening, man? I think that's the thing with most kids, because most people in most places, the murder rate is going down and stuff, but people.
Oh yeah.
You ask them in surveys and they're like, oh yeah, but it's worse now than it's ever been, and it's all a mindset. It's all in their heads. It's not actual reality.
It's all what they're being programmed through the TV, and you know, and their friends are being programmed through the TV, and then they talk with their friends, and that's tired of being afraid to go outside. Tired of being afraid of the world. I lost you there. Did I mute it?
No, I was saying that's one of the sad things of the world we are right here. We send kids from the moment they're born into this whole rat race, and it's just all about you got to have the right. You know, I mean, I'm old enough to think, man, and I'm not being funny, but and I've got a son who's now grown up, so and I'm not speaking from a naive point of view here, but I don't know now if he was growing up now, whether I want you know, and I know people do it. I know people, friends of mine, who are giving their kids 2 iPhones, and I'm like, really? Do you know? Surely they should be connecting with other kids, rather. You know, so I don't try to. Whenever I say this, I don't try to sort of come from a self-righteous point of view, because I think it's really hard for people right now, but I just think we live in a world where people are, instead of giving their kids attention and letting them be kids, basically saying, right, I'll fill that hole with the latest electronic thing, which then sets them up to be, I've got to have what Johnny's got. And then and then kids just imprinted with it. And like you said, it's just so hard to, that's why the perfect analogy is like the laptop. You know, once you've got your main laptop and it's been infected with viruses and cookies and stuff, man, it's a bitch to get them all off. And that's the trouble with how we live in the culture right now, and we just infect people with this idea of what everything is, even though it's not reality, and then we wonder why people are like they are, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
you know,
What's the matter? You can't adjust? No.
you
This
know,
unnatural world. Everything's backwards and upside down.
it's
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I think we're going through, and that sort of like ties in with that whole singularity stuff and thing. I think we're going through a metamorphosis point of human beings, and I don't know whether if we came back in 100 years' time, we'd even recognise us as human beings. We can be completely different, or where we will recognise ourselves. But I tell you one thing, I think we will look back on. We'll look back, and the future generations are going to look back at us and go, "You were barbaric. The way you treated kids, the way you treated the ill, the way you treated the infirm, the way you treated the poor, the way you just treated the planet in general." And that's why I'm very aware, and that's what drives me in my life. Is like I'm very aware that history is going to judge us all, and and if you can try to sort of push the world in a right direction, even if it's just yourself, it's better than just like you said, like the very beginning of this conversation, just turning your back away and going, oh well, that's how things are.
Yeah. Well, I think in the future we're all going to be our own leaders. I think eventually technology will help us get to the point where we can be independent and dependable for each other. So it's the natural human condition. What we're experiencing is unnatural because of the tools we use in our society that are so primitive, you know. And once we overcome those things, I think with the technical solution, when we overcome them, we'll be in a better place. I mean, we're fixing what goes wrong as fast as we can. I mean, we're putting out fires left and right, but we don't notice, you know, what we don't know the true cause of what's causing everything to catch on fire. And once we see the solution, I think we'll all be very happy with it and adapt it readily. And once the people who are willing and looking for that solution adopt it, then the rest of the world will follow right along, seeing that how much better off things are. So
Yeah.
I hope it's something. I believe it's going to be something like Made Safe or like a blockchain technology or some other altcoin that just gets it right and makes it work. I mean, who produces money? How do they produce money? They take your social security number and they commoditize it and then they borrow against it, right?
Hmm.
So that means they're borrowing your money, right? So what money do you have? What money are they borrowing from you that you have money? Well, can't you just borrow it from yourself?
Hmm.
Because just cut out the middleman. He's just taking a cut. He's going to make a war with it and putting up government. And just cut out the middleman. I'll make the money for myself. I'll say how much I need, produce it, and then I'll redeem it with my labor dollars when I do things like when I read to my kids, when I pick up trash on the ground, when I fix my grandmother's computer, when I change the light bulb, when I mow my grass. That's how I'll pay myself back for the money that I borrow. When I produce something, a painting, and I give it to somebody, that's me producing. So that's my income.
Yeah. And I think it's I think there's it's basically, to break it right down. It's a difference between. I think the future is going to be more about, and I think this is what we should all, as human beings, developing in ourselves. It's basically the currency of goodwill, you know, and that's what it's about. Do you know what I mean? Is that we create stuff, like you said, and we can, you know, like it's not only a case of just, you know, getting paid back when you mow your own lawn or look after your kids, but then, as I said before, you know, it's the goodwill of like, okay, well, the old, as it would be all of us, you know, the old lady down the road, she can't mow her lawn, but I'll go and mow her lawn, and you know what I mean. And that's it, this currency of goodwill. And I'm amazed when I hear all these social warriors and all these people that talk about this, that, and the other. And I think, God, great. I understand what you're trying to do. You are trying to generally, you know, want better things in the world. But I don't agree with you at all. But you know, when I hear them all talking about how the government is the solution, and if we can just tweak things a little bit more, and I think this is just the cries of selfish people. These are the people that don't do anything, don't contribute to anything in society, that are just parasites. And then they go, oh, without the means of me getting my money from everybody else, without somebody with a stick and a gun and throwing people in cages, how am I going to survive? And the rest of us are like, well, no, the currency is goodwill. The currencies of like, we produce, and all we want doing is rewarding for it. I want to live in a world where creative people, if you know, that should be allowed to, you know, oh well, you know, if anyone from children upwards, they'd be like, oh, you know, Joe Bloggs over there, he's a really good artist. I don't want him to go and work at Burger King, you know, feeding kids crap. I want him to go out and become that's what world I want to do, because that's fulfilling his human potential to the maximum, which is what we should all be striving for every human to be, whatever that expression should be, as long as it's not harming other people. That to me is what we should all be striving towards.
I agree. Totally.
No, I have to ask someone like you because you've worked, you've had a fascination with computers all your time. And we talked a lot tonight about AI and stuff. Now I have to ask this question. Do you think AI has been something that we've constructed as a human species, and it's just been for our innovation that we've done this, or do you think it's been around for eternity before us? And all we've done is just tapped into it, and we're just tapping into something.
I think the human brain is a computer, and it's a biological computer, but I think it's essentially the same as another computer. So brains have been around almost as long as life has. So yeah, I think you could say that you're tapping into something, but it's just a mathematical structure, and we're kind of unlocking the way it works, the way to get the information out of it. It's just a formula. I'm not afraid of like an AI becoming super intelligent and then taking over and making us all slaves. Or I am kind of afraid like of a stupid AI where it just has a limited, the paperclips AI that wants to turn the whole world into paperclips because its ultimate goal is to make as many paperclips as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That could be scary, but I think I don't think that we're going to. I don't think we'll have as much to worry about when we're there at the point where we can create it. I think we'll be more able to understand it and control it then. I think we'll be smarter by the time we get there.
Yeah, because I tend to be more in agreement with you because I think the greatest AI that's been here, and it's been here for ever since we've been on this planet, is nature itself. I mean, that is a huge, great big artificial intelligence. It can communicate between great distances. That's all the more we're discovering. The more we're discovering is that, the tiny little fungus, that grows in there, and that's connecting trees that are miles apart, and they're communicating them.
Yep.
The whole of Maysafe, the whole inspiration behind ants and how they communicate and how they can decentralize and swarm intelligence. And then you see it in birds, and you see it in fishes, and you see it expressed everywhere. And you think, this is just an AI. This is the greatest intelligence that's ever been around. And all we're doing, and that's why I think we're maybe in a good part as where we are as a human species right now, is we spent a long time trying to come up with solutions that are against nature and think, oh, well, if we do this and we centralize this and and all we're doing now is we're starting to go, oh, actually, maybe we should learn from the great intelligence around us, which is nature, that's always been around. So I don't fear AI because I think we're surrounded by AI. We were born from AI, and we're going to descend back into AI. I mean, we're just a little blip along the way on a tiny little rock in the middle of a giant universe. Just have an expression of it. So.
Yeah, well, we don't know any more than what's around us. So everything we've learned is from what's around us, the nature around us. So everything we've constructed or imagined, it comes out of nature, from nature's ideas, if you can call it ideas, from nature's structures.
Yeah, and when you start to sort of understand that, like you say, nature's structures, and I mean, how sometimes that some of the lunacies, like you said, some of the things that the madnesses that human beings have been on through time and stuff, and you realize a lot of these could just be just a tiny little imbalance of chemicals. You've been bitten by a certain animal. Robert Skoblovsky talks about it in Tomatosis, how you can be bitten by a certain creature and that will affect someone, and because they're a certain structure in society, everyone's like, gone completely mad, but everyone will just blindly follow them, which is, I think, the more important thing to us all to realise is that we're all brains of the central nervous system, and we should all question everything, and even ourselves. Do you know what you should do? Look in the mirror. I mean, the ceiling demon say it perfectly, man. I was chatting to the other week. He said, you know, when you look in yourself in the mirror, question that, question truth, question everything, because that's the nature of the world, man. You know.
Should never stop asking questions. But if there was something wrong with you and you knew about it, you'd have already changed it. So you've got to discover what it is that's wrong, and you do that by interacting with other people. And that's what socialism is, I guess. Sociality.
Mm. And that's why I think it's important that, you know, and again, I hope, and this is what I was trying to say earlier on, I see the positives, and, you know, maybe I'm optimistic about things like virtual reality, because I think if it's a means and a ways of connecting people, where people can, you know, sit in a virtual world and talk to someone from Africa, and right now they're divided by languages and all the rest of it, and then great. I mean, that's all well and good. I'm generally, I'm for anything that's connecting people and anything that breaks down barriers between people, because the only reason that anybody's throwing a piece of metal from either from a plane or a drone, or whether it's from a gun or a sword, the only reason they're doing that is because they hadn't had any connection with another human being. And like you say, and they've just been taught this. They've been taught this. And if we can just get most people down to, which is the whole idea of sitting around like this is a form of a campfire, and you just break it down and go, oh, we're just lucky to be alive, man. And we shouldn't really be arguing about colours of skins, or, you know, what flags people are flying, or what currency they're using. It doesn't really matter, because we're just on a rock that's just in the middle of nowhere, tumbling through space. That's more of the thing that should get us all, you know, together. And that's why I'm optimistic, because I think anything that can connect people, and we all get to that realization and stop taking ourselves so seriously, and understand that we are just on a rock. I mean, that's only a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all look the same on the inside.
Mm.
No difference.
Exactly, my man. It's just, you know. So I mean, we kind of, you know, we've talked about, you know, how it sort of current sort of things and stuff. I mean, how do you sort of envision? I mean, if I was to say to you, I could put you in a time machine, take you 10 years down into the future, are you optimistic? I mean, how do you think the world will look like in, say, 2025?
I think it'll look a lot different. I think we'll have a lot more insight and data on what's true, and we'll have learned a lot of things by trying them out and failing. But 10 years, you know, isn't a change I could adjust to. But, you know, like, if you put somebody in a time machine and put them 100 years in the future, speak to the people anymore. You know, they'd be so different.
Mm.
In 100 years, we're going to change a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe we are we are fortunate enough to be in that, or unfortunate. That's a whole different rabbit hole to go down. But, you know, maybe we're in that. Maybe we're in that generation that we have the ability to live forever. We could be immortal. We could have the, you know, just be alive, just because we're alive right now, but technology will rise and will be able to keep us alive for 20,000, 50,000 years. I mean, these are very, very strange days to be living, my friend, you know, compared to what we've seen in the last sort of 20 years. Because that's what I'm saying. 20 years ago, like we were saying, you could have not, you know, if we stood back in like 94, or, you know, and gone, oh, okay, we wouldn't have really sort of seen, but we could have maybe had an idea of where we would be in 2015, because some things haven't changed. We still got Bush versus Clinton going on. I mean it's just that some things don't ever change. But I think, honestly, the next sort of 10 years, it's going to be absolutely momentum, because I think everything's going to change from every direction. And that's what I'm saying, whether it's singularity, you know, the rise of technology, just everything. I just think we're just seeing a lot of this dissolving of the lot of the barriers and the ways that things are happening from every angle, whether it's from the cannabis stuff that's happening at the moment, where, you know, from that right through to how we're starting to see drone warfare, and
War.
things are dissolving, and that's to me is only a good thing.
There is no real utopia. No matter how good things get, I mean, we'll just be as angry as today, or as happy as today, based on our own perspective on the world. Because if you go back 150 years, when no running water, no, you had an outhouse, you had to go out and till the field with an ox, and you know, sew your own clothes and bake your own bread. We live in a luxurious time right now. We can go to McDonald's and get a burger and fries, but it doesn't seem that much better to us. It doesn't seem, you know, we don't walk around every day. Gee, I'm so glad I have a cell phone that I can call people with. You know, it's just there. We accept it as part of our life, and then we look out on our life with either despair or hope, depending on where we're coming from. It's not really about the world, it's about where you feel you are in the world. I mean, it doesn't help if you're in Gaza, or, you know, Yemen, or 100 other places at war right now. I'm sure that's not just perspective, of course, but children will play in a war zone too. Children can be happy even there.
Yeah, exactly, my man. I mean, the question I'm always it's become a bit of like an in-joke between a few of my friends and stuff, is that we're always asking ourselves, is, you know, like, do we? And I'll ask you, do you think the 100th monkey is alive on the planet right now?
Yeah, 100th monkey. Yeah, I haven't read that paper yet, but I'll have to read it. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, it was an experiment, I guess, with monkeys in a protected habitat or something, and when certain number of monkeys started washing their food, then all the monkeys started doing it. Yeah. Well, we'll get there. I mean, I think, you know, truth is discoverable, and lies are they never lead back to truth. If you follow them, they always lead back to more lies, or they lead to the truth telling you that it's a lie. So as we discover more knowledge, and as we gain the ability to organize the knowledge and teach ourselves better, then we'll become a better society for it. I mean, right now, let's see, what was it? Some startup, you know, just take any high technology company like Google or Facebook or Twitter. They use a fraction of the people that a normal corporation of their size, of their financial size, would use. So you're doing more production with less labor. It's coming to the point where 1, 2, 3 people can run a whole company and get to be as big as those guys are. I mean, eventually we'll be able to do individuals, or, you know, small groups, or we'll be able to implement giant things like Facebook or Twitters of the future. You know, it won't require hundreds of people to do it and millions of dollars. So we'll have the tools to be able to do it ourselves, and then by cooperation, you know, be able to make it work, to make it function. And when those things get big enough, they'll they're more powerful than centralized top-down organizations, because when they're flat, everybody's involved, it's much bigger. It gets much bigger. So we have, we're gonna have, more technological solutions than just Bitcoin are in the pipeline. You know, new ways of learning, or new ways of organizing information or storing data. All these kind of things are going to be coming in the future. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of the things. I mean, I'm constantly inspired. I mean, by some of the apps that have been built for the Safe Network. I mean, one of the things we kind of danced around tonight in this conversation is, I think how this could just change everything radically would just be the medical. If the idea of putting some sort of medical and solving some of the medical problems through this Safe Network, where we have direct access between themselves and the knowledge, whether it's a doctor, or whether they go directly to a doctor, or they go to a guy in Amazon, or whatever the solution is. I think this is what I'm saying. There's so many. I think it's going to happen so quickly, and I think that I know there's so many people right now that are all busy building all these things, and then nobody really knows what's going on because they're all kind of separated by time and distances and stuff. But they're all going to spring through at the same moment, and it'll change things radically because, like I said, I think it's all about getting people connected with their knowledge and ability to have cut the middleman out, and I just think that this stuff will just accelerate really quickly, because I think that people will realize very soon that middlemen in any process is never a good thing, as you quite rightly said. We've all got our own minds, and we should use that more, and I think that's it's a good exercise and a good Zen moment for people to realize that life is just being thrown out of a plane, and we've got to grab that parachute and make of it what we can, because ultimately we are ultimately just living for a short space of time on a tiny little rock that's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you imagine the human species as one giant brain, one giant mind, and you're just like a brain cell in the giant brain, you can understand why you don't have all the knowledge. You can only contain some of the knowledge, and other people have more knowledge than you are, and some have less. But you've got to do your best to either make the people who don't have enough knowledge aware, or learn from the people who do have enough knowledge, and more knowledge than you, things that you can, and that's the way we're going to move the world forward.
Exactly. It's just like I say, it's breaking down the barriers, because it's and again, and I think this is again, it's just a small little fundamental one, but it's just like you said, it's all about semantics and how we look at things. And instead of putting up people like someone who's really good at one skill and saying, "Oh, they're just a genius," no, they've just got a ridiculous amount of knowledge about that one thing, But you put them in front of a piano, they won't be able to do jack shit. You put someone who's really good at piano, and then you put them in front of a canvas, and they won't be able to paint. We've all got different skills and different things we can contribute to it, and that's the variety of life. And we shouldn't all just be putting people on pedestals because they're good at certain skills and other people. No, we need every facet, everyone, you know what I mean? And that's like you said, even if it breaks down to the person who's just walking out every day and just walking around looking at flowers. That's what that's what life's about, and we shouldn't hierarchical and put people on the pedestals and all this sort of stuff. It should just be, we should all be able to tap into information as much as possible, use what we need to do, extract it, and then forget about it, or follow that interest up. But it's all about freedom of choice, and I think that's hopefully where we're starting to see bloom and blossom around us. Is we're starting to see more opportunities for people to have that ability to, get hold of knowledge and express themselves and have more connections. That's what gives me optimism about, general movement as I see around. But then it's hard to make these comments because I'm just stuck here in the middle of Guruk, so I can't in Scotland, so it's hard to sort of know. But I have a great, I don't know, I had not belief, because that's not the right, that's not the word I don't like to use at all. But I just have the great understanding that people are people, and that most people in this world, like as you quite rightly said, that would get along. And it's just I don't know. It's just connecting people. That's all it's about.
Well, it's also removing the competition between people. That would be very helpful. That
Exactly.
would help. One of the examples that came to mind when you said the word semantics, it's actually, semantics is different than general semantics. Semantics is about word meaning, but general semantics is about the way you think of the world and the words you use to describe it. One of the ways to understand how the words you use affect your emotions is to think of this. You can act like a pooch, like a dog. You could behave like a dog. You could bark and scratch your legs or whatever, but the dog can't act like you. Can't imitate you, right? There's a level of consciousness in the dog, and there's a higher level of consciousness in human. The human is a time binder. He's able to associate meaning through time. A dog or any other animal can do so to a certain extent. That's how you train them, because they can remember things, but they don't have the higher order ability to associate things in time, or to associate through language. So one of the things is words can affect you emotionally. Like if I called you Scottish pole smoker or something, that would maybe set you off emotionally. But when you're emotional, you're using that lower down animal portion of the brain to react to the word, when you should use your higher portion of the brain and be above the emotion. This is Korzybski used it to help vet World War II vets when they came back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and helped to cure them of their stress syndromes by helping them think in general semantics terms, and help them disassociate the words, the things they were thinking, from the emotions they were causing, the distress they were causing themselves, with the emotions tied to the words.
Well, that's something I can closely associate with, and I have no reason not to discuss this. But I suffered a car crash just a few years ago, and the near fatal car crash, and I suffered from PTSD, and there were certain triggers, and it was a fascinating thing, and that really does work. You realize how powerful just a trigger can be, or a certain word, or a smell and stuff like this.
Yeah, or smell,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
And it's
something emotions.
And that's one of the things. Again, this is why I talk about these things, because the kind of suffering that human beings are going through, and they're not even, it's just this very subject. I mean, how many people that are going through PTSD aren't given access to the treatment they require, because of, again, the money situation and stuff like that, and they don't even know, and they end up suffering, which eventually can lead to suicide. And it's just small little triggers that, if someone just at the beginning, or they had the ability just to understand that, it wouldn't need that suffering. Because I was like it, it's amazing. You think, whoa, how can, you know, a color or a sound, you know, affect me so much? Why am I crying when I'm seeing that? You don't associate it, but it's all about knowledge. And if you're not given that knowledge, you don't know, and you start to internalize it. And like I say, then you express that to other people, and it becomes a whole big growing thing. And it's all just from just a little bit of knowledge. If we just had that at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand that. So I mean, I think it's all anything that, you know, helps these things, because it's, I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know when he wrote that piece, but I can't imagine what it would have been like for guys who, you know, after the Second World War, who wouldn't even understand what PTSD it was. It was shell shock then, wasn't it? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, they had no clue what it was. Thought people were just trying to get out of duty. Yeah. Oh, you don't want to fight? Pussy. But no, your world is your perception of the world, because you know, Plato's allegory of the cave. You're just in a cave somewhere looking at shadows on the wall. Your eyes and ears and nose are just sending electrical signals to your brain, and the things you see with your eyes. I think the statistics are there's like 125 million nerve cells in your eye. Of those, about 25 million are connected to your optic fiber, and of those, even less are connected to your brain cells. So really, you're shedding all this information from the optic nerve as it goes through, which means you have to fill in with your brain what's missing to complete the picture. Some great examples, you know, optical illusion stuff that you don't realize that you watch a video and like there's one I saw, a bunch of people throwing balls in the air. There's about 12 people, right? And they're walking around on stage throwing balls in the air, and then you watch the video and you watch them throw the balls, and at the end of the video they tell you, we'd like you to watch it again, only this time we're going to go a little slow. And they stop it in the middle, and there's a guy in an ape costume in the middle of all these people throwing these balls in the air, and you're like, how did I miss that?
Mm-hmm.
How did I miss that? But it was all the motion stuff. Your brain filled it in, and your brain draws images. Like if it knows what something should be, it'll fill it in. And there's all kinds of optical illusions you can do to bring this out, to make it visible to you. When things look like they're spinning when they're solid, or all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the fascinations, and it's been something that an element I've drawn a lot upon about being an artist. I mean, because whenever I look at nature, I'm like, okay, I've got two options here. I can either try to replicate this as much as, you know, which I'm never going to do, because I can't. If you get down to the molecular level, it's chaotic. So I can only ever give a representation of a rock, and then you start to realize that you can start playing with illusions, and you start to realize that certain colors. I mean, look, you're never going to see a purple road. I mean, guarantee where this was painted, there isn't a purple road there. But like you say, but these are the elements that creative people play with. They play that with music, and they play that with. And this is what I'm saying. This is why I think it's absolutely essential, as you said right at the beginning of this conversation, is that we allow people to have the freedom to explore these things, because, you know, maybe
that is the best of what humans can do. You know, that is what they want to do. That's what they do their best at. What they're interested in.
Exactly, and I think the analogy, one of my friends who's a scientist, he said this to me, you know, in the podcast. He said to me, the phrase that the artist challenged the scientist and said to the scientist that the moon was made of cheese, so the scientist would go there to prove him wrong. And I think that's exactly the very good mentality about how we should all be in life. We need people, you know, the people out there, but the trouble at the moment, we're not, like you said, we're not exploring these things. So, you know, And that's what creative people do. They push the boundaries of, like, say, an optical, how much we're connected. So that's why people who are very creative people, they like to play around with subconscious and and what would be termed in our world as a psychedelic, and they like to play with, how you take a few perceptions away and you just tweak a few things and you're seeing other things. Dream states. That's why a lot of people who are creative love working with dream states, because you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I saw all this in a dream and that's inside my head, and yet that's not in reality. But that's what artists and that love to explore with, and it's all pushing, the humanity and the commonwealth of knowledge forward when people do that. And that's what upsets me, when people are confined into doing certain jobs, which we go right back to this whole conversation, because of money, because of the way it's set up, that people aren't being allowed to express themselves and they're being forced into working in Burger King and it's a waste of human potential, and that's not right, what anyone says.
When you think about the cost of something, and you ever try to break down the cost all the way back down to the basic materials? You ever think of it that way? Like, okay, the retailer is selling it at this price. Well, they only paid less. If it's $1, they only paid, say, 65 cents for it. Okay, they bought that from the wholesaler. The wholesaler probably only paid 50 cents for it. But the manufacturer is charging based on the labor and materials he purchased from somebody. Um, the labor maybe only a few cents on an item, and the materials he bought maybe 15 cents total, right? So the other 35 cents is profit going to pay off his loans and his insurance, his stockbroker, his stockholders, and stuff like that. Now, the person he bought it from, well, they had to go out and dig it out of the ground or manufacture it, produce it somehow. What's their cost if they're only charging 10 cents for it? I mean, really, there's no real cost to anything. It's all just, do we have the materials, and do we have somebody willing to put it together? You can get somebody willing to put it together who can automate the whole process and do it 100% no labor all the time on most of the stuff we use. Most of the things we purchase or manufacture or need can be done with no labor. And it can be done in infinite variety too. Not just like white cups and white plates. People think of, a centralized economy is all going to be one thing. But a resource-based economy would be a decentralized economy, in that everything has value for itself, not value for its sale price or for its market value, or whether there's somebody out there to get it who needs it. It's the thing is manufactured for its own beauty. The Chinese used to make the most beautiful porcelains, and it was when the emperor employed somebody, these people were making the very best they could with the materials, because they took pride in what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they were paid to do it, not because it costs the most money. When you see art in buildings from the ancient world, it was sacrilege to sign your name to it. Michelangelo never signed his name to anything. It was sacrilege to do that, because it destroyed the artwork to put your name on it. It's not about the art is not about the artist. The art is about the art.
Exactly, and that's. I mean, you can see that expressed in the world we live in right now. Because I mean, if I was just to charge for canvas, oil, and everything I was doing, and put it on the labor, I mean, all artwork would be under maybe 200 quid. $200, that would all it always. But people will always pay more because of what you're expressing, and this is what I'm saying. It ties into that very thing, because it's it's all about the like you say, artists and creative people. We've known this all the time, because most creative people live in a world where we we naturally don't fit in the paradigm of the world outside. So, you know what I mean? So when someone says to me, "Oh, I'll pay you X amount for a picture," I'm almost in myself thinking, "Really? Okay, well, I don't know why that would be worth that money, or it'd be worth that figure, because I don't know how to value anything." And that's what I'm saying. That paradigm doesn't work. That thought process doesn't work in the world out there, where it's all about da 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 da, and then. But how can you put? Like I said, I mean, the fundamental one is, how can you ever put value on anything other than the actual cost of what it's being put on? And that's the weird thing we live in, because at the moment right now we have people being rewarded with ridiculous amounts of wealth and all the rest of it, and all the consumption that goes around that over something, and you think, well, actually, do you deserve, or not do you deserve it, because everyone's got the ability to do it, but you think, what actually have you actually put yourself into that? You know, this is a weird sort of thing where I think it's crucial. I keep going back to it. I think we need to get people back to where they can be themselves and not having to be copies and clones of everything else. You know what I mean? Where we can uprise the arts, and we can uprise people who are pushing boundaries and creating things in music or in artwork or in science or anything else, because those things are the more beneficial ones, and that, rather than everybody just replicating, which is then the worst thing about it. I see it all the time with artwork, you know, and I think, man, how many trees are knocked down, how much crap is put into just a reproduction of reproduction. It's like, well, man, what's going on here? There's no originality, and we're just consuming the whole parts of the planet, so everyone's got the same poster in their bedroom. It's a madness. It's an absolute madness.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that the sad thing about, when I think ties into that whole, what you just said then about the Chinese thing, and I think it's one of the things that's definitely lost in the world we live in right now, is that when people are really, the people like you say, who do have the passion, whether it's artwork or the guy who's making, you know, hunting knives out of antlers or whatever it may be, those people are putting all that they have passion and craft, and they have passion and want to do the best they can do. You know, they're not rewarded as they should be, and that's the frustrating thing about the world of man. So when people go, "Oh yeah, look, everything around it's all bland and it's all the same," you think, well, yeah, because we're not. There's no incentive for people. There's no incentive for people to do anything special and push the boundaries and spend time, like you say, crafting and that. Because if you break it down to the beginning, the basic skill to, when I've learned this, hasn't been an innate gift given to me from some superpower. That's just years and years and years of me practicing, learning skills, making mistakes. But that right now in the world we live at, if I was 16, as I've been there myself, thinking, oh God, I've got to go 10,000 hours down the line to learn the skill, or I could just go on, make myself look a bit pretty and get the same resources. And we've got to reward people going, like, you've got to learn this, you know, make the skill, learning the skill an actual worthwhile pursuit, rather than as it is right now. Well, no, there's more to be gained from just being a shark in a tank, putting a suit on and stamping on everyone else. And that can easily be done, and it would change everything.
Assholes are rewarded. You know, shit rises in this system, and the crap rises right to the top. The shittier the people, the farther they seem to get, because they're ignorant of the people they hurt. They don't care. They don't mind, and they think there's just them that's important. And if you're not competing hard enough, well, I guess you lose. But it's not about beating each other up. It's about getting along and trying to help each other, not help yourself. When I haven't worked for money in 10 years, because anytime I found myself working for money, it always turned into crap. It's just you know. There were things that I did for money that I enjoyed, but I would have done them for free because I enjoyed doing them. And when I was done enjoying them, I stopped doing them. There was no amount of money you could pay me to do it anymore. It was done. And that's the way I think everything should be. You do it to your heart's content, and then and you're content, don't do it anymore, or keep doing it, or whatever. But people who do things for the money are doing things for all the wrong reasons, and it shows. I admit, advertising irritates the crap out of me. I turn my radio down when an ad comes on. There's nothing. There's nothing that I want to buy.
Mhm.
Nothing.
So on that very one, man. I mean, what tomorrow morning will get you off and find your synapses? I mean, what's your big passion? Right now in this moment in time that we speak.
Hmm. Well, I have two young children, 3 and 4. They keep me pretty busy. Um, lots of things to teach. I have a grown-up kid too. He's 19, 18, 18 and a half. So I just hope he doesn't join the army.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can all hope for that one. I mean, so from my memories, when my son was 3 and 4, man, I loved those days, and I always said to my friends around me who've got children at that age, you soak it in as much as possible, because as you know, man, you've got 19-year-old, 18-year-old,
Yeah.
they fly before you know it. They want you to become dad's taxi and drive them around everywhere. So I think that I love those ages, because I think that between, I don't know, maybe 0 and 7, it's absolutely watching the brain develop and
That
the
first
skills it
7 years,
has.
I agree.
I've always been so, that's a great passion to have every day, man. And that ultimately, that is, as you said earlier on, that should be seen as a great height of where we are as a species, to look after kids, not being relegated to, we just put them in childcare places and let the
Yeah.
state deal with it. It should be a
Or in
high
front
end.
of a TV or a video game. It's what could be more valuable than the people who are going to inherit that world when you're gone? Shouldn't you teach them how to take care of it?
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that I again, I made it a sort of a point. If I was going to bring up a child on this planet, I would always see it as, I'm going to be the guide for them, and that's all I want to be, a guide. And I'll try to, show them and tell them what to do. And you know what I mean? And it's amazing, like I say, he's now in his 20s, so I was doing all this in the 90s, but the amount of friction that I used to have against people, because I wouldn't tell him, like, no, there's no such thing as Father Christmas. I'm not going to
Yeah,
bullshit you. There
me
is no
too.
such thing as fairies. There's no such things
Yeah.
as this. This is, and that's the thing. And when you don't feed them with lies, and as you'll know, my man, and every parent who's got a child, kids will ask you the most fascinating, deep questions, and then you have a choice at that moment. Do I lie to you and say, oh, well, it's all Jesus and, magic clouds and all that? Or do I actually go, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll go and work, and that's, if you can, but, the friction I used to have against that, because it's amazing, as you know, with the amount of parents that just feed their kids lies, and then they wonder why, the kids grow up disliking their parents. It's like, well, maybe they get to 10 and realize that, whoa, wait, I was being lied to for 10 years of my life, man. You told me about Father Christmas and tooth fairies, and none of that was true.
Yep, exactly.
So if your kids ever come to you, do you ever have any of that sort of like moments where they come to you and go, oh, the teachers, my friends are saying that Father Christmas, and or hasn't a lot cropped up?
Not cropped up yet. We've already told them that Santa Claus wasn't real, and haven't come across the tooth fairy yet. So.
Well, do you know about? Do you know about? The one I love, and again, it's up to you if you tell your kids this one about. The whole. Do you know where the whole sort of Santa Claus tradition comes from? It's
Oh
because
yeah,
the whole and the mushrooms and
Yule
the reindeer, and them drinking the reindeer piss that had the psychedelics in it, and then they were leaving out these
yeah.
mushrooms. It's a very deep thing that, if we again. And if you know, I mean, what makes me laugh is that we tell our kids about Santa Claus and this guy who runs a sleigh over the sky and all that, and that's seen as okay. But to actually tell them the real truth about what it is there's actually a mushroom that people ingest through drinking the urine of a reindeer. Oh, but no, you can't tell them that one. I mean, and I'm like, well, what's more nonsense, man? I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah. Our prudishness, lots of psychological malfunctions in the later age of life. So trying to overcome those and still have children who will fit in is hard balance. Yeah.
But it is, man, and this is one of the things that, as you know, and it's amazing how much the world changes when you have children, because you can live in a world when you don't have children. The minute you have them, you realise. Well, one thing I realised even more now, I've been on this path all my life, and I wasn't naive to this, but when you have a child, you're like, oh my Lord, you realise how much intrusion the state have in your life. You know, from the minute they're born, they want to inject them with this. They want to. It's all about being watched, and it's like, whoa! You don't realize when you don't have a child, you never realize this until you do, and then it's like, geez, it's so intrusive in the lives of where we are.
Yeah, right about when my kids were born, it was about the time I saw that Freeman presentation, and I really didn't want to get them even a birth certificate. They weren't, but the wife sometimes gets her way. So,
yeah, man.
Some things she just won't do.
Well,
Some things she just doesn't want to go. Shouldn't just don't want to go all the way yet. Somebody's got to pay the bills, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I mean, it's obviously you're where you're based and stuff like that. Are you finding a lot of people around you are managing to actually start this whole process of actually starting to live off the grid and doing aquaponics and self solar power and stuff like that, or is that not something that's really got traction where you are at the moment?
Well, anytime it gains tractions, I usually put up either zoning ordinances or the zoning board comes out and says you can't have more than 5 chickens or 1 goat or 1 pig, or you can't have solar power, you can't be disconnected from the grid, you can't collect your rainwater, this kind of stuff. They probably wouldn't let us keep our own recycling. Yeah, it's no raw milk, no farmers markets really. I mean, they get stuck out on hot street corners every once in a while, but people have an interest to do those things, but the state has an interest in squashing them, and they do a pretty good job of it.
It comes back to that thing I was just trying to say earlier on. There's no incentive right now. That's what I'm saying. When you do it, you're gonna have a lot of people coming against you, whether it's a state or and there's not actually a lot of incentives to do it. But again, when you look at it logically, you think, well, it'd be better for us all if everyone just grew their own food and understood about just getting a little bit more in touch with nature. It would be fine, But as long as we, and do you know what gets me, man? And I don't think it's the same in America. And this is one of the things that's always frustrated me that, I can go down to my local supermarket down here and I'll see meat packaged in this silver, clean film, and it's all pink and juicy. And I'll just walk in, I'll see plastic everywhere and all my food all under this clean. And whenever you hear anybody from that kind of food industry, they always say, oh yeah, but customers demanded this. I'm like, well, what meeting did I miss? Because I was never asked about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like I say, I think we just become. It's another perfect example. We just become disassociated with the whole production of how stuff gets to it, and this is why I always say to people, it's like whenever I hear people going, "Oh, it's a system," and I'm like, "No, well, you're responsible for that." You don't have to go down to the supermarket and buy that pack of sausages that's under the plastic. You don't have to do that. You are participating in that. You could go down to the local farmer who's who's a local guy, and he's got his own little pigs there, and he makes some sausages. Or you could not even eat meat or not eat pork, or But this to take the lazy option and then to go, oh, see, it's those people at the top who are doing this to me. I'm like, no. You've got to take. Again, you are the brains of the central nervous system, which means you've got to take responsibility for how you're doing it. But as he said, it goes to the point now where there's no incentive for people to do that. Whereas it seems to go so against logic. But that's like a lot of things. We live in a really logical and rational age we live in, and yet you see people killing each other over religion. And you think, really? These people still believe in a guy that's going to come down on a magic cloud? And it's I don't know. That's why I say so. That's why sometimes it's depressing. Sometimes it's optimistic. But you think, I just can't believe that we still live in a world where some of this stuff goes on. But some of this, it is amazing. It is amazing that we can live in 2015 with all the knowledge we've got, and there's still people that are, right now, right in this very second, are all doing stuff over whose God was right. 2,000 years ago, as you said, and it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, the discomfort will continue until we are uncomfortable enough to find a solution.
Yeah,
it's a yin yang thing. I think it's like, there's a balance to the good and the bad, and even though there really is no good and bad, but from our perspective, you can see things as the bad things promote movement towards the good, and the good things kind of allow us to slip back towards the bad. If we had it all easy, we wouldn't have very much character. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're right, because this is one of the things that it goes back to what I was trying to say about food. We become detached from nature, and like you said, I think you're very, very true, because you automatically people will go, if I won the lottery, I'll go and buy an island in the middle of the Caribbean and be by myself and stuff. And you go, yeah, okay, but you still have character, because by that process of living out on that island, you're going to come in tune with the seasons, the sea, what fruit, you're going to, and you'll gain character because you'll be more in nature. Whereas the worst people in society right now, the people that just live in cities, don't ever escape from cities, and I think that's the reality. And it's like, man, do you know what I mean? You are the problem, because you're the ones that want your sausages wrapped, and you want your raspberries or kiwi fruit from New Zealand in the middle of Scotland in December, and it's like, well, that shouldn't be the case. And if you do want a kiwi, it should cost you a lot of money. It shouldn't be, a cheap.
50 cents, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like grown locally in greenhouses, so there's no reason we can't do.
Exactly.
Greenhouse technology has been around for hundreds of years.
Exactly, and or even I'm not even like you say, great in your own greenhouse, or just get to again. And it was like, again, what meeting did we miss? Because they always tell us that we demanded it, but I'm like, who demands kiwi fruits in the middle of winter from the other side of the planet? No, I understand why they do it.
Somebody fine. Yeah.
I understand why they're doing it, because it's part of they want to sell you kiwi fruits, and it's all part of that. Like we were saying, it's all part of the machine. But the way as I said before, the way we evolve from that is we go, right, I just don't want to participate in that. So my power is I don't go and buy a kiwi fruit, or if I want a kiwi fruit in December, I grow it myself. That's the real power.
Yeah. I sometimes, when I think about the future, I think of like a 1,000 drones flown by Anonymous and going to rescue Gaza or something. I don't know. I think technology and in the future would be able to, and it will enable us to do a lot more in a lot different places than just our local area, you know. Now, right now we can reach out and we can talk to someone, but what if I flew a drone to your house? That's a little different. I'm reaching out and touching you too, in a way, extensionally. So that's probably the next place we're going to go to, is able to physically interact with people, at least exchange goods or something like that. And then maybe telepresence. Maybe something so real, like the Matrix type of telepresence, where you would just jack in and you're in a virtual reality someplace, and you can't really tell the difference.
Yep. Well, and then you go down the whole rabbit hole, which we've tried to explore on this podcast many times before. Of like, are we just living in a computer simulation anyway? Because that whole Nick Bostrom argument is a very powerful argument, because it's hard not to sort of think, wow, maybe it's hard not to sort of see that we are living in a computer simulation of somebody who's already far advanced than us. I mean, it's hard not to sort of come to that conclusion.
Yep.
But, you know, as I say, whether that's the case or not the case, I mean, you know, all we know is that we've got the ability to, right now, whether we call it free will, not free will, whatever you want to call it, at least we can have this conversation. So even if we are just a simulation, at least in this simulation, we've got the ability to communicate, and maybe that's it. I mean, if you are going to take often this is a very kind of how I think about things, but I think, great. So if it was a simulation, then. And then you understand, okay, like most game theories and that, there's an objective, it's basically to progress to the next level. So what's this teaching us? Okay, to progress to the next level, we should all connect, and that's how you get to the next level. And if you don't, you lose. And it's a bit like the old Eastern idea of karma. If you do good things, you know, you'll move up, and if you're a twat, you're going to move down and become a slug and learn again. And if that is a computer simulation, that's what it's about. It's the ultimate sort of, to get through to the end of it and go, yes, I did it properly because I connected with people and I moved to a higher plane of existence rather than just not seeing it. Maybe that's the whole point of the simulation. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we're maybe we're at the very beginnings of our lives as a being that will last 1,000,000 years. Maybe we're at the beginnings of a lifetime that will last 1,000,000 years, but we're only at the very beginning, just learning now. So where will we be if we live 1,000,000 years? How will we think it then?
Yeah, that's. I mean, or maybe we're like we're the caterpillar phase of before we become the butterfly. And as much as the caterpillar doesn't recognize a butterfly, it's flying around. It's got wings and colors and stuff, and it's, maybe that's just exactly what we are, and we will not recognize ourselves anyway. But maybe that's just the universe's way of going, right. Okay, well, until you evolve to that point, I can't let the world, universe be multiplied by caterpillars. You need to get yourself, like I say, progress through the game. When you got to that higher point and you realize that, then you become a butterfly and you join the next level of the game. And we do, because as we know that we're surrounded by multiple universes. We know that the whole idea of infinity means everything that we can comprehend has been done in an infinite amount of times, in an infinite amount of ways, and we'll go on doing it. So, we know that these things exist out there. That's what I'm saying. Hopefully we can all get to that butterfly stage and move on. But if I was a universe, that's how I would work it out. I'd go, right, now you start off as caterpillars and maybe you'll die as a caterpillar, but eventually you will rise to become a butterfly. And you need those certainties, because you can't let the virus out loose. Imagine us loose in the universe now. Can you imagine us? I mean, what we like, man. I mean, they gave us it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we put an engine on a wing. 50 years after that, we're putting a nuclear bomb and we're blowing up countries. I mean, we're madmen. As a species, we're maniacs. So yeah, right, yeah, we'll keep you in that stage until you evolve, because
Yeah.
we're maniacs.
Yep. Don't let us have the big toys.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a fascinating GIF, and I'll put it out there as a GIF that you can go on YouTube. And there's a guy, and he put every single nuclear explosion that went off and when we discovered them. And man,
Oh,
Nevada,
I see.
yeah, you see
Yeah.
Nevada just lights up like a Christmas tree. It's like the whole of the 50s and 60s is just like, man, you. I mean, what logic was driving that one? You think, okay, we know what it does, we know it works. Why do we need to set off 10,000 odd nuclear bombs? But that's
You
what I'm
know
saying.
John Wayne. You know
Mm-hmm.
John Wayne, of course, right? Do you know that he was exposed to the radiation of a nuclear blast when he was filming his last movie out in the desert, and like half the crew died from radiation poisoning from that movie.
Unreal, man.
You know,
Wow.
they just oh, this is a good place in the desert. Photogenic, beautiful. Can we use it? Sure. Radiation all over the place from nuclear bombs.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's maybe why we've been kept in a caterpillar stage, and we do need that whole. Maybe that's the reason why we need evolution. That it needs to, it's called evolution for that very reason. It's always progressing, and until you get to that certain point, it's impossible for us to do it because, do you know what I mean? There's still a lot of that old, as you were saying at the beginning of this conversation, there's a lot of that old dinosaur reptilian brain still at work in a lot of people. It's still that just hunt, kill, heal. And we've got to evolve. We've got to evolve beyond that.
It's encouraged by
Mm.
our social media, our TVs, and the social activities we have.
It is, my man. But this is the point. Exactly the point we're both agreeing on in this whole conversation is that as much as we live in a world where that is pushed out, and yes, Tom Brady's and all these people or David Beckham's and they're the heroes. Man, we still live on a planet where they're just a small number, man. There's so many billions of people that don't even know who those people are, and they're having lives and don't have any relevance to any of this. And that's the thing. The great thing about this planet, and people need to remember, is that there's a million paradigms going on right now, not just the one that's America and Coca-Cola. There's other parts of the world, and there are other people, and it's just a shame that like we were saying earlier on, that you could go anywhere in the world, but Coca-Cola will be there. But hey, the great thing is that as much as you could go into the middle of Congo and you find a Coca-Cola sign, not everybody in the Congo is drinking Coca-Cola, because we're a bit more smart than that. But like I say, that's not what the media want to tell you. They rather have you focused on kick the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball, kick the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball. That's what they're focused on. But we're living in a world where there's people coding whole new safe networks. There's people out there coming out with great music, poetry, painting. There's people, there's people inspiring all over the world, and that's what I always try to focus people on, and I think it's really important that we do remember that all the times, because it's the world isn't just what we're being fed through the the narrative of what we live in.
Sure.
Well, man, look, I tell you what, man, we've been going at this for now like 2.5 hours, man, and I think it's kind of without kind of like jumping down too many more rabbit holes.
Only 4 people per.
Do you know what I mean? And I as I said many times before, I think I look forward to we'll make this the first of many conversations, because I think there's a lot more areas and stuff we could we can go down. Now, couple of things, and before we wrap this up, where can people kind of reach out to you and find you on on various means?
Twitter, PCmcGee on Twitter, or just search PCmcGee on Facebook. You probably can't miss me. That's the best way to get me is Twitter.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And like I say, it's been, well, man, I've been looking forward to talking to you for a while, and
Yeah, it
and I
has
think
been a little while we've been talking.
it's like I say. I mean, it's been an absolute. Well, thank you for giving me your time tonight, man. Because I know that time's precious for us all and stuff like that. And well, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight, man. And well, all I can say is from me here in kind of dark and wintry autumny Guruk, I'm going to say good night and love his people, and well, good night and have a good night, people, and we'll see you soon. Life is people.